Welcome back to BT. Meredith, Shaw, Sid here with you. All right, we get it. We just finished the holiday season. Credit cards are maxed out, and many are living paycheck to paycheck. Saving might seem out of the question for you, but our next guest says it's never too late to save for your future. Senior financial advisor and senior portfolio manager. I applied for the job. I didn't get it. Shiraz Ahmed. Been kind enough to join us this morning. Shiraz, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. This is the time of year where people really are taking a look at their finances, figuring out maybe, can I have a different relationship with my money and how that's all working? So it's a little bit overwhelming. How can we make saving possible?
So look, we're living in a pretty expensive time right now, and it's no joke, especially if you're in big cities like Toronto and Vancouver. But first things first, remember that it is a bit overwhelming, but saving is one of the most important things that you can do. And while we all have a different relationship with money, most Canadians are actually pretty good about paying their bills. So a little bit of a take from David Chilton's Wealthy Barber is he talks about paying yourself first. My version of that is bill yourself first. So take the pressure off yourself on trying to save, especially when life is so expensive, but just focus more on billing yourself first, and you'll thank yourself in the future.
Give it the priority of a bill. Just change
even
the way
just reframing that.
Yes.
From save to bill, because you're right, we do pay attention to bills. That's you got to do that. Yeah,
gets our attention, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so people might be watching the Shiraz and saying, okay, saving, it's a nice thought. I am bad at that. How could people be less bad at that?
So look, it's going to depend, of course, on your own individual financial situation, but there's a few things that you can do to help supercharge your own financial situation. So given how expensive it is, especially here in Toronto and Vancouver, there's a concept called the waterfall method that you can use. Now, this is applicable, for example, with a first-time home savings account, where it has it's a new account, it has an annual contribution limit of about $8,000 a year, which if you were to actually math that out a little over $650 a month. And assuming if you lived in Toronto or Vancouver, you make, let's say, $100,000 a year, your marginal tax rate will be about 31.5%. So given that, you'd get a little over $2,500 in the form of a refund. So not only did you put $8,000 away, you get a $2,500 refund, which, let's say if you put that into your TFSA, you now have $10,500 working to your benefit. That's supercharging your savings.
And what's a TFSA again?
That's a tax-free savings account. And it's a misnomer because it's not a savings account, it's actually an investment account.
Yeah, and that is putting some real math into our sentences here, because that can be challenging when you're saying you sort of have these goals that you're thinking about, but when you actually put those numbers to it, it can really be possible. Like people are thinking about being that first-time home buyer. You can use that calculation that you just were talking about and actually get there.
Absolutely, and even if you don't qualify as a first-time home buyer, that same methodology can still apply by using your RSP. So substitute the first-time home savings account and enter in your RSP instead. Now the limits will obviously be a bit different. It will vary depending on your individual income, but the concept still works. It's all about how do you find ways to supercharge your savings, and using that waterfall method tends to work quite well for folks.
So where does retirement and RSPs come into play here?
So similarly, you can use it as the waterfall method for it, but really RSPs is an account type. And I think there's a concept right now, and RSPs have gotten a bit of a bad rap, frankly, especially from younger folks who, I think it's maybe a Tinder generation thing, I don't know, but...
a little fear of commitment happening with that?
Perhaps a little bit,
yeah.
but...
Swipe save.
100%. So the reality is these are all account types. So an RSP is an account type that's effectively you're putting money in to get an immediate benefit today in the form of a tax refund, versus, let's say, a tax-free savings account. You don't get an immediate benefit, but you get an exemption from taxes down the road. They're both important. They're not mutually exclusive, just like Tinder. So the reality is you got to use both.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to use them both. You got to really get familiar with some of those terms. If that's not part of the generation that you're in right now, it's never too late, maybe is what you're saying too, to start that kind of saving and start that kind of process in your life?
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times in my practice I get a call from a family that's, I'm 45, oh no, I haven't saved for my retirement. First thing I tell them is don't panic. That's majority of Canadians, funny enough, especially nowadays. So I always go back to an old proverb, right? When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. Just get started, and it doesn't matter how much you're doing. Just a little bit goes a very long way.
Shiraz Ahmed is a senior financial advisor. Where can people find you online?
So you can find me online on my website, sartorialwealth.com, or even on my YouTube channel, Sartorial Wealth at Raymond James.
Come on, YouTuber.
Well,
Bury that
Johnny
lead.
YouTuber over here. Appreciate your time.
You.
Thank you very much for coming in.